but still, you get a little bit more serious. So when we think, what are you passionate about? We're asking you, find your passion. We're saying, follow your bliss. That is probably what you heard when we went to the library, right? A lot of people were telling you, this is great. You've got to make sure that you make your life's work your passion. But I'm not sure that that's realistic. For a lot of us, we're gonna just be regular people with regular jobs. You're gonna be accountants, and you're gonna be insurance salespeople, and you're gonna be consultants, or whatever that is, right? So I'm here to say that congratulations to the Passion Project winners, because they were able to identify a passion that is their passion now. It might not be their passion forever, but I think the more important message is something that I learned from my mother-in-law, who sadly she passed away this summer, and she had a message on her kitchen wall that said, "Bloom where you're planted." And this never really sunk into me when she was alive, but it has new meaning to me now. And I think it's related to following your bliss. It's almost like a counterpart to following your bliss. To me, it's that idea that you're going to follow your strengths and your interests and try to find a job that can pay your bills, right? And take care of your family. And maybe you're going to follow somebody else. Like you're going to find a partner who's following his bliss or her bliss, and you're going to end up in Jersey City, New Jersey, or Norfolk, Virginia, like I did. And boy, that was really far from where my bliss was or my passion was earlier. But the point is, bloom where you're planted. Find your passion wherever life takes you. Wherever you end up, find your passion in the people around you, in your community, in whatever it is you're doing. Make that your passion. Find what interests you and give it your all, because that's what my mother-in-law was really about. She would just roll up her sleeves and make the best of everything, see the best in other people, and be passionate in that sense. So I thank you for listening, and I also thank you for voting, doing the hard work of picking winners from all these fantastic passion projects, because that was really hard. Congratulations, and thank you for having the courage to come and do this presentation again. Because I remember when I told my class, like, okay, the winners are going to get to do their presentation again. I think Quinn was the one who said, like, that sounds like a punishment, not a prize. So I really, really appreciate the 4 winners today. The topics are varied and relevant and exciting. So please give a warm round of applause for our first presenter, Chloe Dixon. A little bit about you first. Chloe has been impressing teachers and students since I've known her. I mean, really such a sophisticated thinker and a great contributor to class discussion. And this has been a bee in your bonnet, right? The idea of climate change and ecological crisis and temporary was your project when we did controversial science argument. Chloe was working on sort of thinking about the proposals for space exploration as a response to climate crisis. It died. It's okay. But that idea developed, I think, over the years, and she's here to talk about a related concept passionately. So thank you very much.
I'm going to speak to you in 1 minute.
Interpretive dance. The screen.
That's all I have.
That was my one move. That was pretty solid. Everyone, talk amongst yourself.
Spend all first period getting to make sure that works.
I'm sorry. I talk too much. That's what I talk too down.
Oh,
That's what's new. Shut up. Hello.
We're back.
Okay, hello. So I did my passion project on sustainability. It's something that I've been passionate about for probably since middle school. I really love the environment. Always went out there and hated me to see like pollution and just all the trash everywhere. It just always pained me, and it was always something that I was very passionate about and wanted to go into a career about. So sustainability, I feel like a lot of people have heard that word, but they don't really understand what it actually means. And sustainability is really to progress and develop a world that can sustain future generations. Because right now we are kind of not doing a good job at that. We're kind of consuming our environment so that we can live in it today, but we're not really thinking about future generations and how they're going to live. So it's really to benefit us and help have us, like, give us a sustainable environment, but also to give our children a better environment as well. So right now we are consuming, according to Alex Steffern, we are consuming 5 planets, but we don't have 5 planets, we have 1 planet. So that's something that, like, what are we gonna do? Like, are we killing our planet? Is our planet gonna just disappear? No. Our planet's gonna be fine, honestly. A lot of people think that when we say, go green, it's like we're killing our environment, we're gonna not have a planet to live on, but actually we're just killing ourselves. We think back to the dinosaurs and how a meteor struck the Earth. The planet didn't just blow up, like the planet didn't disappear. It was a species that disappeared, and that's what we're going to do to ourselves and all the species around us. So sustainability and going green isn't about, oh, we're not like, I mean, I love the planet and everything, but it's not about the planet, it's about us as a species. So, yeah.
There
we go. Okay, wait, is it technical difficulties? Okay, so this is the model according to William McDonough. I read his book Cradle to Cradle, and he gave our current design model that we are currently manufacturing it. So it starts off, if we want a product, we have to spend millions of dollars to extrude raw materials in order for it to go to a factory, and then it literally then, break it apart and pollute the air with that. But once we get it produced, it goes to the store where it sits there and sits there. Sometimes it doesn't even get to the consumer. Sometimes it ends up just getting thrown out from there. But maybe a consumer will actually go and buy it. And once they buy it, it's this new product that they have. And it's, I don't know, there's something about getting something new that us humans just love. We love having this brand new package that's just ours. We're the first ones to use it. So we take it out of the package just goes right in the trash. That's just what packaging is, so it just immediately goes in the trash. And then we have this product that at first we are in love with it. It lasts us a good while, maybe. I mean, everything's obsolete these days, so who knows how long it will last us. But by the time we don't want it anymore, or its use is gone, we throw it in the trash. And for us, it's so easy. We get to just, we have a trash can, and we just can put it in the trash, and it's gone. That's our responsibility is over with it. We have no idea what's going to go from there. But hopefully it just goes to the landfill, and there pile and pile and pile on trash that will just sit there, and there's no use to anything in there anymore. So, but sometimes it doesn't even make it to a landfill. Sometimes it will go onto the side of the road. Some people, yesterday I just saw someone chuck a water bottle, an empty water bottle, on the street. I'm just like, there's literally recycling right there, if not a trash can. I mean, anything's better than just chucking on the side of the road, but yeah, so sometimes it doesn't even make it to a landfill, which is, I guess, where we want it to go. And sometimes it just goes into our water too. We just pollute our water with trash, and it's like, this is what we're drinking. Like, why would you do that to yourself? And we're not even doing it to ourselves. I mean, it goes on to animals, and we kill our animals with our trash. But I mean, we don't know that, do we? Because we just throw it in the trash. We just throw it somewhere and it's gone. We don't know that that's happening. So to us, it's not really our problem because we're done with it. But yeah, so we're just killing ourselves because we just, I don't know, are we lazy? Like, what is it? We want things to be so easy, and yet we're just killing ourselves because of it. So this is the model that we would like to have. This is a sustainable design model. And here we have two spheres. We have the biological and the technical sphere. And so in the technical sphere, it has to be like organic, non-toxic materials. And so the organic synthetic materials can be brought to the factories to be produced into products. But then once the products are consumed by the consumer, they can either, from the organic materials, go into the biological sphere where they can be decomposed and then turn into nutrients and fats for our food. Or it could go back, so we could reuse the materials, and then it could keep going in the loop. And from here, we can have the biological go into the technical, and we can have the technical go into the biological. But in this cycle, nothing is wasted. Everything can get reused, and that's what we want. That's how the world works. The world is meant to sustain on itself, so everything goes in a cycle. So if the world works that way, like, that's nature. Nature wants to work in a cycle, but yet we like to go linear. I don't know why, but that's just how we like to work. So how do I get people to want this? It's Dorna Schroeder. She's the woman who I met at the library. She said you have to change attitude before you can change behavior. But that's difficult because while I'm very passionate about it, I became passionate about it at a young age. Not everybody's going to be passionate about it. So you have to consider, how are we going to get the entire nation and entire world to try to go sustainable? And really, it just comes down to money. Money is really the driving factor in our society. That's really the only thing that keeps us going and wanting to be a citizen. So my goal is to really try to persuade people by showing them the economic benefits of sustainability. And really for businesses, that could be, we got multiple reasons. Businesses really like sustainability because it increases their competitiveness, and they have their brand name, sustainability. Everybody loves, well, not everybody, but people like to see that they're buying a product that helps the environment. Another reason is the government actually is putting regulations on companies so that they can try to push its sustainability and environmental factors onto it. And they also can get grants and loans and everything. And even just the normal consumer can save money from being sustainable instead of, buying personally, I like to-go cups, but instead of to-go cups, you can just buy a mug that you can use every single day, and that will save you money, so you're not having to consume and consume and consume. So it can save you money and be energy efficient. So really, it does come down to money, and I really think that if people can see the economic value and sustainability, hopefully that will persuade them to go sustainable. But also just consider the big picture is that with sustainability, again, you're not killing the world, you're just killing yourselves. And if people want to have an environment for themselves in the future to live in and for their children to live in, you really have to consider, like, we are killing ourselves right now. Thank you.
I've never used one of these before. Oh good, I don't have to push a button. All right, hi everyone. Yeah, you know better than that, thank you. All right, so our next presenter here, I was lucky enough to have my first year here of teaching in my creative writing class. She is bright, she is bubbly, she is inquisitive, and she is actually speaking about a topic that is very, very important to her and hits very close to home. It's not her first time talking about this particular topic. I was able to see her present about something very similar to the Board of Education last year. So it's really cool that she's here again. She's talking about it again. She did a fantastic job, and I can't wait for you to hear Addie Romero talking to you about immigration reform. It's okay, it's okay.
Hey guys! Hi! So I'm Adelina Addie Romero, and I'm going to talk about undocumented immigrants in America. First off, I was born here, so I'm a citizen, but my parents were both undocumented at one point in time, and I relate very hard to this topic, so I'm very passionate about it. So here I go. Okay, so why is this my passion project? It's because of my parents. My mom and my dad both immigrated to the United States in the early 90s. My mom, that beautiful woman, she's from Costa Rica, and my father's from Honduras. So I'm not Mexican, guys, even though you guys have asked. But my mom was undocumented for 10 years, and then luckily through money and a lawyer, she was able to get a green card. And then in 2012, she was able to get citizenship. But my father was undocumented for 20 years until my mom became a citizen. He was granted residency because he was married to an American citizen. And hopefully this year, my dad will become a citizen. Growing up with immigrant parents was a little difficult in some ways. I only heard Spanish at home, and then when I'd leave, I'd only hear English. So as a kid, my mind confused the two so much that I got a speech impediment, and I wasn't really able to read or write. And so I was in some special classes, so shout out to people who were in speech with me. And seeing them struggle a bit with getting work and being taken seriously for their broken English was hard for me to see because I saw them as no different than anybody else. But they didn't, as I asked them, they didn't think that they went through many struggles, but they did point out that our loved ones and like family friends who were undocumented have struggled a lot. So at a young age, I developed an empathy and a passion for the lives of undocumented people who were seen as less than, as my friends and their parents. So I started out doing my presentation in my class with giving everybody strawberries, not only to get their attention, but also to give them a sweet, but also to show what most people think of when you think of undocumented immigrants. Many people think Latino and just like pickers, which in some aspects that's true. They do help our like farming like production, but that's not the only thing that undocumented immigrants do. Many are little kids, college students, teachers, working in restaurants, owning small businesses, acclaimed journalists, nurses, and even doctors. So they're not really who you think that they are in the stigma sense. So that journalist who I showed you guys in the last slide, that's him. His name is Jose Antonio Vargas. He's an undocumented immigrant from the Philippines. and he was on the cover of Time magazine, and he launched a campaign called Define American, and he went across the country revealing that he was an undocumented immigrant, and he wanted to ask many people what makes someone an American, because to him and many others, they are Americans, but just not with the proper documentation. It is estimated that 11 million undocumented immigrants live in the United States, and it has been found that undocumented immigrants pay $11.6 billion in taxes every year. However, they do not receive the benefits that they are paying for. This includes Social Security, health insurance, retirement, and many other things. And they pay so they look like they're benefiting society for when they get citizenship, well, when they go in line to get citizenship. But in the end, it's pretty difficult to get that. And against popular belief, studies have shown that undocumented immigrants are less likely to go commit crimes than like native-born Americans. So when you hear in the media, especially now, when people say that a lot of bad hombres come to the states to bring a lot of crime and drugs, it's actually been proven untrue. And approximately 65,000 undocumented students graduate from U.S. high schools every year. They've been to our school, they go to school with us, and they will graduate yearly by our sides. Okay, so one of the big questions are, why are undocumented immigrants illegal? This stems from a huge perception that there's this line that you just have to go through in order to get citizenship, when really it's a really difficult process. My dad was undocumented for 20 years because he didn't have the money or the real education to take the steps in order to get a real green card and take the citizenship test, since he spoke broken English. But my mom, she had a better education, and she just looked the part because she had fair skin, and she just looked better to like immigration officials. So she eventually got her green card, and then she took a really lengthy citizenship test in 2012, like I said, and then she became a citizen. So this, many who begin this process to become a citizen and become legal feel very vulnerable to law officials, and in many times they will be brought to law enforcement because many people see that they're undocumented, so that many think that that's a crime, so they get found out very easily. So they don't want to go through the process of getting documentation if in the end they're just going to be deported before they can get it. Okay, so many struggles that undocumented immigrants face, like my parents, it was the uncertainty of the future. My parents, they weren't too nervous about being deported because my dad had a program called TPS that kept him from deportation because he was from a poor country. And my mom, she just kept her head down and just worked like cleaning houses, so she was never really afraid of getting deported. But my loved ones and my like family friends, I would see were very scared of getting deported and were afraid of what would happen to their children because citizen children of undocumented immigrants go into foster care or slip through the cracks, and the government doesn't really care about them. So it's pretty hard. And undocumented journalist Jose Antonio Vargas, who I shoot, he says that being undocumented means going about my day in fear of being found out. It means rarely trusting people and those closest to me with who I really am. It means reluctantly, even painfully doing things I know are wrong and unlawful. And the wrong and unlawful things that many undocumented people do is that when you're filling a job application, there's usually a box that says, I'm a citizen and I'm authorized to work in the United States. And they check this, even though it's a lie, because if they didn't, then they probably wouldn't get the job. So many people feel guilty about that. Currently, like right now, many undocumented youth are being stripped of the programs that allowed them to stay here, like DACA and TPS. DACA was a program that let undocumented people who were brought here as kids be able to stay in the United States and have a social security number, and were able to have work and be kept from deportation. That was recently taken away, so many kids whose DACA is about, like their DACA card is about to expire, will be faced with the risk of deportation. And like I said, when undocumented immigrants who have citizen children get deported, their children face becoming part of the foster care system and slipping through the tracks. A famous actress called Diane Guerrero, she's in Orange is the New Black, and she said that her parents were deported when she was at school, and the government never came up to her and like tried to check on if she was okay. So she was left to loved ones and neighbors to take care of her. So she was taken away from her family, and she never understood why. Okay, so reform. There are many forms of immigration reform that's being like chopped around today, but the most popular one is the DREAM Act. It's been debated since 2001, and it's a bill that would allow undocumented immigrants who come here as children go to school here and not risk deportation. But Congress has never passed this bill, so dreamers, the people who would benefit from this bill, fight every day in order, they protest and stuff, in order to dream and accomplish a life that will allow them to be American and legal and have a great life. So what can you guys do? One thing you guys can do is you can donate to organizations that are fighting for reform, like United We Dream, National Immigrant Justice Center, Family for Freedoms, and etc. You can volunteer for interpreting or babysitting children. We have an ESL program in town at one of the churches that you can go and get community service by teaching people English. And there's a program at the elementary school that I went to as a kid that you can help tutor undocumented kids and just give a friend and help them with their homework and just make them feel special, which is very nice. You can protest, you can call state and local politicians and become educated on immigrant rights and lives. One of the biggest things you guys can do is just give empathy and speak out for immigrant lives, because when people are talking down on them, a lot of people just let them speak and not really change their mind. But if you change their mind, you change the cycle, you help break the stigma. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. I'm going to introduce my first one of two students that I have going here today. In a second here, Jamie's going to get up here to talk to you about something that is very near and dear to her. And I know, I hope I'm not saying too much for her here, but I know Jamie, when she was putting this together and thinking about doing this, there was a lot of concern and trepidation about what she should do, what she should say, things along those lines. And, you know, when you're passionate about something, ultimately it does make it easier to kind of push through the things that concern you, the jitters, the fear, all that kind of stuff. And anybody who was in that period, the day that Jamie went, and saw that presentation, saw what passion can do in terms of pushing past the things that might be roadblocks otherwise in life. Because not only did she get up there and not show the fear, but she crushed her presentation. And actually, you know what, I'm not even going to say anymore because you're going to hear it in a second. So here's Jamie, somebody who, as a lot of you probably know, I'm 20 years older than she is, and she's probably more responsible and a nicer person than I am. You know Jamie, you know who she is. So I'm not even going to introduce your topic, I'm going to let you do it.
Alright guys, so I am doing the stigma of mental health. And I know many of you probably right now want to go to the bathroom and walk around the school for like 10 minutes and come back and are like, whoa, thank God I missed her presentation. That was going to be terrible. But I promise to not bore you. I promise to not talk about my brain and how it functions and all those neutrons in there that you have all learned in science class and probably do not want to hear about again. I promise to keep this as entertaining as possible because this topic is harder for me to talk about than any of you will probably ever know. Mental illness is something that has been close to me and my family, and it is something that I feel very strongly about. So some of these celebrities on this screen, Ellen DeGeneres, Sam Smith, Demi Lovato, Oprah Winfrey, they all suffer from mental illness. These celebrities are well liked by everyone. They could say anything and we would all still like them because they're pretty much perfect. Even though they make flaws, we're still going to like them no matter what. Well, if these celebrities cannot talk about the mental illnesses they face, what makes me think that me, as a teenage girl, can go out and talk about what I face? Well, I know that I might not make a huge difference, but it doesn't stop me from trying. I'm not going to be one of these celebrities that can openly talk about their illness and not be judged. I might be judged, but I know that each and every one of us can make a difference. The stigma around mental illness exists, and it's huge, and it needs to be ended. And it's going to be a process, but I'm willing to try to make a little bit of difference, because every person in this room, I've gone to school with you guys for 13 years, and you are all amazing people. You have all touched me and impacted me in more ways than you will ever know. And when I say that you guys can make a difference in this, you probably can make a difference more than anyone, because you all inspire me every day. So as a kid, I watched the movies and read the Winnie the Pooh books. The author of Winnie the Pooh created the characters to symbolize people with mental illness. That was her way of coping with it, was creating books with characters that have schizophrenia, anxiety disorder, OCD, depression, ADHD. Watching and reading these books as a kid, I never knew that the characters symbolized something more than just funny, comical little bears that eat honey and pigs and tigers that jump around. They meant so much more than that. And now looking back, I know that even as a kid, the author wanted you to learn that people are going to be different than you. Not everyone is going to be the same. Not everyone is going to fit that puzzle that I had on my first page. But it doesn't mean that they are wrong. I know this probably sounds like a cliche quote from Pinterest or a Hallmark card, but we are all special in our own way, and you cannot judge someone until you really do get to know them. Education is a huge part that surrounds mental illness, and from a young age, this is what this author wanted to instill in all of us. So 42.5 million people suffer from mental illness in just the United States. I'm sure many of you know someone that suffered from a mental illness. If it's not you, maybe it's your parent, maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's your community member, and if all those don't apply, well then guess what? It's me. You all know me. And I'm one of those 42.5 million people. And I don't like to talk about myself because this presentation really isn't made to tell my story. Because I don't really want sympathy. I don't want you all to look at me and think of me differently. But I do suffer from a mental illness. It's hard for me, and if any of you suffer, I'm sure it's hard for you. And that's why this stigma is so important. It needs to be ended. 800,000 people commit suicide every year. That is not okay. No part of that is okay. And I don't have a Golden Gate Bridge story to tell you. I wish that I did. I wish that I could tell you something that could make you want to stop this. But maybe the only thing I can say is you all are wonderful people already. But before you make a comment, before you isolate someone, before you talk mean to someone, before you do something that you might regret, don't do it. You don't know how that person's feeling. You only know what's on the outside. And I look kind of like a nice kid that's fine and does well in school and overachieves and does all the homework, but inside, that's not me. That's what you see, but that's not me. And when I say don't judge a book by its cover, that's another one of those Pinterest Hallmark quotes, but it stands true. You cannot judge someone before you know what they are going through on the inside. 1 in 4 families have a relative who suffers from a mental illness.
That's a lot of people. Yet when you bring up the topic, when you say mental illness, it's almost an untouchable subject, something that no one really wants to say, something that no one wants to really hear you talk about, but it's there, and it's something that I want to work for people to be able to talk about. I want when someone that is suffering to be able to say what they feel, what they're going through, without feeling like they are burdening other people or that people are going to look at them differently. Because right now, this is hard for me, to say how I'm feeling to all of you without feeling like I might be judged. And if it's hard for me, I imagine it's hard for a lot of other people. And that's what I want to change. So many of you know what stigma is. It's feeling different. It's feeling outside of everyone else. It's isolation. And it applies to many topics. But obviously, I'm going to focus on the mental illness aspect of it. But why we need to end the stigma around mental illness? Well, fear of rejection and discrimination can delay someone's journey to recovery. Feeling isolated and feeling like you're not accepted can only make someone suffering from a mental illness feel worse. And that's why, as a group, you need to let everybody in, even if they may be different than you. Mental health problems are the leading cause of disability across the United States. When you see someone on TV and they are shooting and committing crimes and you go, oh, it's because they're mentally ill, that's not true. There are so many people that are great people that suffer from mental illness. And that's why it's such a widespread problem. And I don't expect numbers to go down and people to automatically start accepting people. But we all can do a part. And most mental health conditions can be controlled. They can be treated. And that's why if we all work to accept others and be kinder, even just a little bit, maybe people can get better. They can feel better sooner without feeling like they need to hide back what they're feeling. All right, so this was my infographic in the 5 ways to end the stigma of mental illness. Well, you have to be educated. You have to know what a mental illness is, the symptoms of it, how it can affect someone. So maybe if you do have a friend and they don't talk about it, maybe you can sense how they are feeling and you can work to try to help them, maybe in a tiny way. I'm not going to do what the guy that spoke in front of us said and have you go around and say, how are you feeling to random people, because I know that's probably hard for everyone to do. But if you know someone close to you that is suffering and that is having a problem, then you can say to them, are you doing okay? Are you all right? And it may make their day. If someone said that to me, it may make my day. Be accepting, be empowered. You have to communicate with others, and you have to ignore the media. You have to ignore the way people portray the mentally ill on television or in movies as criminals and psychotic people that belong in mental asylums, and that's not how it should be. It's how it is, but it's not how it should be. So, acceptance is what means the most to me. Right now, mental illness is the ugly duckling of society. We all try to fit this mold that we are perfect and we wear the best clothes and we act the best way and we say the right things in order to get everyone to like us. Well, I'm not the most liked kid in this school. I'm myself, and I too strive to be liked, try to have the most friends, try to be cool, because that's what this world is about. We all want to try to be the best person, the best well-liked person. My how-to project was how to not fit in, because I don't really fit in. And I'm okay with that. I would kind of like to, certain times, but I'm okay with being myself, even if I'm not the most liked. But mental illness cannot be that duck in the back of the line. It can't be the people that are forgotten, the people that are left behind, the people that don't matter. It can't be like that. Everyone matters. All of you here matter. looking out on all your faces, yeah, it kind of brings some tears to my eyes because I see some of what in you guys, some of what you may not see in yourself. I see wonderful people, people that are going to go on to do amazing things, people that are going to go on to follow their dreams. And I know all of you will not be that ugly duckling. We can't let other people be that ugly duckling. We can't let them fall behind. We are an amazing group of people, and we need to keep that group together no matter where you go. So, the main thing that bothers me is when someone breaks their arm, they get so much sympathy. They get people coming up to them asking, how did you break your arm? What happened? How did you fall? But when someone says they have a bipolar disorder, people are like, ooh, who's that kid? I don't want to talk to him. And no one really addresses it. They kind of hold them back. They don't really do anything, and they can't go sign their brain like they would sign a cast. So the person is just kind of left to the side, and it's just kind of how it is. And I do not think that should be the way it is. I think that when you break an arm and when you get diagnosed with a mental illness, it should be the same way. It should be the same thing. Many times in the hallway, I hear people say, oh my God, this test, it's like I'm having an anxiety attack. I feel so depressed today. What is he, bipolar? These phrases, yeah, trust me, I misuse them too. I'm guilty of it. Even though I have a mental illness, I misuse them. I say them too often. And I'm sure you guys do too. And by saying these phrases so often, it makes people that have a mental illness feel like they're not really important, because if everyone says these things, then if they say it, they're just going to kind of fit in with the bunch of other people that say them, and they're not going to want to talk about it, because so many people are saying, I feel so depressed today, that then if they say I feel so depressed today, it doesn't make them feel like they're talking about their problems because everyone says it. And a lot of it is a teenager thing. I do it. But some of that needs to stop so that people that actually are suffering can share how they feel and make themselves feel like they're not just generic or that ugly duckling, that they actually can speak about what they're going through. So people that have mental illnesses are still capable. If you have depression, you can still be sad. I thought Molly and Me was a pretty sad movie, so that's why I use that. People that have bipolar disorder, they can still be angry, and people that have anxiety, they can still be stressed. Maybe at smaller amounts, it might take them a longer process to overcome how they feel, but they are no different than the people that are fine and normal. Everyone that has a mental illness can still fit in and can still be accepted, just maybe at smaller amounts. So, me, I don't really like talking about myself, but I have anxiety. I know, and trust me when I tell you, it's not just worrying. I come into school every day scared of what people may say, scared of tests, scared of things, and scared of a lot of things that I'm not even going to say because all of you would probably think I'm pretty crazy for some of the things that I worry about. But I do. And I'm okay. I'm confident, and I believe that I'm going to grow up to be the best person I can be. But when you're in a class with me, and I raise my hand about 5 times in a row to answer a question, and you're like, oh my God, this girl, will she just stop raising her hand? She doesn't have to show off or anything, just let someone else do it. It's not because I want to be annoying. It's because every time I raise my hand, every time I answer a question, every time I do something that makes me feel better, it gives me just a little bit more confidence, a little bit more power that I am the person that I am. I can be myself. I can go out there and be just like all of you amazing people, even though I have a little bit of a setback. So I am the way I am. I'm not perfect. have a mental illness, and I have flaws just like many of us do. But I believe in myself, and I'm going to work to end this stigma because it exists and it's huge. But I think together we can work to end a little part of it. So to end this, I picked this quote: mental health, it's so common, it could be anyone. The trouble is, nobody wants to talk about it. And that's what makes everything worse. So I know I'm not going to allow everyone in this room to change their aspect on mental health and people and stigma, but maybe if you could just leave this presentation maybe trying to be a little bit kinder, a little bit more accepting, and before you take that move to say something to someone that you might regret, think about me. Think about how I want us to all band together to be the amazing group of people that we are. And I hope that we can end this stigma together. Thank you.
All right, one more to go here. Our final presenter, Nathan. This is the third straight year he's been in one of my classes. I'm fairly certain he is a master at knowing how to manipulate me at this point. Because when he first showed up, 10th grade, he brought me an independent reading project on Murakami. Which immediately you ingratiated yourself that way. Great author. Get on that, all of you. Then junior year, video production. Went through the painstaking process of putting together stop motion Lego scene of one of my favorite childhood movies, Ghostbusters. So the manipulation continued. And then this year, why not, just for good measure, he comes in and crushes the presentation on the Passion Project. And I hope you're going to be okay here, because I know when you did it in the classroom, there was a lot of walking down the runway there, and you don't really have that space here. I get it, I pace a lot too, this is hard, but hopefully that doesn't set you back. So, and of course, we got to let him do it again so he can continue to manipulate me further. So I look forward to you graduating in 6 months, because this needs to stop. So without further ado, our last presenter.
So when you think of distance running, you probably think of Kenyans or East Africans. And the two terms have sort of become synonymous. And if I asked you to think about a distance race, you'd probably think of something like this, where the Kenyans are dominating the field and everyone else is sort of left in the background. And you wouldn't be wrong to imagine something like this, because in fact, at the most recent editions of the Berlin, New York, London, and Tokyo Marathon, all the winners were Kenyan. And at the Rio Olympics, the men and women's winners of the marathon were both from Kenya. So if you look at 2012, the number of people who ran a marathon in under 2 hours and 20 minutes, there were 22 Americans, 12 Britons, and 490 Kenyans who ran a marathon in under 2 hours and 20 minutes. So the Kenyans are obviously very dominant on the roads and at the marathon, and they're sort of the masters of the marathon. They're not as dominant at distance races on the track. And in fact, no Kenyan man has won an Olympic gold in the 5 or 10K in the past 2 Olympic Games. So, you're probably wondering, they're so dominant on the roads, why aren't they as dominant on the track? And it's really due to one reason. The man on the left. Mo Farah is from Great Britain, and he has 10 global titles from the World Championships and from the Olympics. And he's won from 2011 to 2017. He's only won gold in 5 or 10K. But if you look past Mo, and you look at the people behind him, you can see that they're all East African, whether it's from Kenya, Eritrea, or Uganda. So Mo has really sort of been the only thing between a complete dominance of distance running by the Kenyans. So the World Championships in athletics happened this past summer in London. And if you look at the medal table, the United States had the most medals, unsurprisingly. And second was Kenya, who had more medals than countries like China, Great Britain, and Germany, India. And if you look at the World Championships before that, Kenya had the most medals, more than the United States and every country in the world since they were first. So it's pretty amazing for a country like Kenya to top the medal table at the World Championships. And around this time last year, Nike launched a project called Breaking 2. And the point of that was to have 1 to 3 runners run a marathon in under 2 hours. And the current world record is like 2 hours, just under 2 hours and 3 minutes. So Nike chose 3 athletes to try to break the 2-hour barrier. And the first was Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya, the Rio Marathon champion. Zerzine Tadesse from Eritrea, the half marathon world record holder. And Lalisa Desisa from Ethiopia. And all 3 of those countries are in East Africa, and they border each other. And what happened was Eliud Kipchoge came out on top, and he ran the marathon in 2 hours and 25 seconds, and which was the fastest ever run by a human being. And it didn't ratify for a world record because the course that he ran on wasn't sanctioned, but he still ran the fastest marathon in history, and it was a Kenyan who did that. So the $1 million question sort of is, why are the Kenyans so good? So there's a book written called Running with the Kenyans, and Adrian Finn, who's a British writer, went to Kenya for a few years where he lived and trained with the Kenyans. And he interviewed their coaches, and interviewed the athletes as well. And he found that it wasn't just one reason to why they were so good, there were several reasons. And the first is their foot strike. So most Kenyans have a 4-foot strike, which means their foot strikes parallel to the ground. And the reason that's so good is that your entire weight is being distributed evenly throughout your entire foot. Many people in the West tend to have a heel strike, which means your heel will strike the ground first, and so all of your weight is being applied to your heel, and that makes you more likely to be injured. And Kenyans can credit their 4-foot strike to their outdoorsy and barefoot childhood. In the West, we tend to grow up wearing cushioned shoes, and so that leads to more of a heel strike. And the second big thing is altitude. The region where most of the best athletes come from is called the Rift Valley, and it extends from like Kenya to Ethiopia and part of Uganda. And the Rift Valley is 7,700 feet high, and what altitude does is the higher the elevation, the less oxygen there is in the air. So your body will naturally produce more red blood cells, and red blood cells carry and absorb oxygen. So when you're training at altitude and you come down to sea level at like New York or London to race, you'll get tired less quickly because your body will just naturally absorb more oxygen. The second big thing is or the third big thing is the Kenyan diet, which is very carbohydrate rich and very low in fat. And Adharan Finn writes a lot about ugali, which is sort of like a staple for Kenyan runners. And what your body does with carbohydrates is it's the first thing that it burns. So carbohydrates are sort of like the fuel that your body uses when you run. And so since ugali is pretty bland, a lot of runners pair it with vegetables, beans, or chicken. So yeah, so the Kenyan cuisine is sort of like the perfect fuel for distance runners. And if you couple those three things with the intense dedication that they give, Kenyan runners run once at 6 a.m. and then go for a second run in the evening. So that's 20 miles a day, about 6 days a week, so 120 miles. And if you do that year in, year out, then obviously you'll be pretty good. And the second thing is their drive, which Finn describes as greater than most Western athletes, because a $1,000 prize to you or me might not be a lot, but for a Kenyan athlete, it can be pretty life-changing. And especially at a major marathon like in New York, where the prize is $50,000, then that's a small fortune. And the last thing is that the Kenyans are known to be wild racers. So a lot of runners in the West will wear watches and will run sort of based off of times and splits. And a big strategy is just to keep an even pace and just sprint at the end, which necessarily isn't bad, but it's pretty predictable. Whereas Kenyans run based off of feel, so if they feel good, they'll push the pace. If they don't feel good, they'll slow down a bit. And so all of those things combine to make sort of like a perfect distance machine. And it's not just like one thing, it's a culmination of things. So the last thing is, for better or for worse, the Kenyan dominance in distance running is actually on the decline. And at the Chicago Marathon just last year, an American man won, which was the first time in like 20 years. And at the New York City Marathon, an American woman won, which was the first time in 76 years. And at the World Championships, Americans won gold and silver at the steeplechase. And these are just some of the recent victories that Americans have gotten recently. There's a lot more, but these are just some of them. And so the big reason to why the Kenyan dominance is on the decline is because in the West, we've sort of discovered the secret to why they're so good, which was, the culmination of factors. And a lot of Western athletes are simulating the Kenyan sort of training experience in terms of training in altitude, focusing on a carbohydrate-rich diet, and having high mileage. And for the first time in a while, for the Olympics in Tokyo in 2020, so 2 years, there are a number of Americans who are in serious contention for a gold medal. And that's it, so thank you.
Before we present our awards for our 4 winners, really want to say thank you to everyone involved in the Passion Project. Thanks to Dr. Davenport for letting us have the space today, and thanks to the Star Library. We should definitely recall that they offered us that nice mixer. We're going to have some time to mix today and talk about the projects that you heard, the presentations that you heard, and have a snack. But we also want to say thank you to our sponsors today for the awards. And They are the Rhinebeck Rotary Club and College Planning Connections, LLC. So thanks to Ms. Kiki Steele for helping us get awards to these fantastic presenters. So if you could come up now, and we could give you a certificate and your prize. So thank you. So you have to buy books with these cards. It's just, I just want to add that.
Oh, wow, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. And round of applause. And you have your prize.